the first player on my list is Chris Olave. If you have been watching my show for a while, you know that I try not to get too excited about names. Sometimes I feel like people really hone in on a season of production, which was 2 to 3 years ago, and that player is just riding off of that momentum. And a lot of fans are confused, thinking that that production they witnessed in the past is still a potential. I don't particularly think that Chris Olave falls into that category. I still think that he's very much a quality wide receiver in this league. I think that he would be an immediate upgrade to the Buffalo Bills. And I think sitting at the ripe age of 25 years old, he is still at his prime as a wide receiver. Now, so far this season, he's been targeted quite a bit by Spencer Rattler. Seventh in overall receptions, 39, 342 yards. Sounds like that he has been utilized more in the short game. Only one touchdown, but an 8.8 yards per average per reception. So this sounds like a guy that Buffalo could implement almost immediately. We need somebody on the outside. We need somebody that could be a threat. We need somebody that defensive coordinators can at least acknowledge when they are game planning against this Joe Brady offensive-led attack. I think if you insert Chris Olave to this offense, I think this team is better. Now, there are some negatives. We're going to get to that here shortly. However, I would like to take a look at some of his more advanced analytics so we can get a good understanding of what kind of player that he is, right? Man coverage, only 34.5% of the time. A lot of teams don't like risking running man coverage against Chris Olave. He's very fast, right? Like he ran a 4.39, I want to say, during the combine, maybe a 4.4. Open 42.2% of the time as far as advanced metrics. That means 2 to 5 yards of separation from the nearest defender. He is an Ohio State wide receiver. That, of course, is a big meme that we always hear. Oh, my God, he's an Ohio State wide receiver. He's going to be a baller, right? He's been playing pretty well. I think that he's had issues with the quarterback since he's been drafted to New Orleans. I think that we haven't even seen what his true potential is. Imagine being able to line him up with the MVP of the league in Josh Allen. Now, very excited about what he can do. His yards after the catch so far this season, 93, right? His yards after the catch per reception, 2.4. Longest reception so far this year was 53. Targets per game around under 11. So he's clearly the offense right over there for these guys. Receptions per game, 6.5. Yards per game, 56.8. Like he's a number one. He is, whether you like to admit it or not. Now, going into it, can we afford Chris Olave? Because that's the question, right? Like we look at what Buffalo's finances are like. And with the failure of the Von Miller contract, which is no slight to Brandon Beane, nobody knew that he was going to, like break his ACL 6 games into his brand new contract, come back and just never be the same, right? Like with Beane is damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? Like he's like, oh, Beane never makes that home run move. He has several times, but it just doesn't work out in our favor. And the Von Miller and Stephon Diggs contract is largely why we are in this situation in the first place. However, fun fact, we can actually get Chris Olave on for an absolute steal. When we signed Amari Cooper last year, it was around $800,000 based off of how his contract was structured. Same exact thing for Chris Olave. All Buffalo would be responsible for would be whatever is remaining from his base salary this year. Now, the thing is, when you end up looking at this, signing proration, roster bonuses, cap hit of $5.2 million, that is money that has already been paid to Chris Olave. The Saints have already paid him those funds. So the only money that whatever team signs Chris Olave would be this number right here. And for each and every single game he remains on the Saints roster, this number decreases. I think last time when I calculated it, I think it's at around $640,000. If he plays again this Sunday, that number is going to go down. So as far as affordability, this makes all of the sense in the world. This could work for the books of the Buffalo Bills. Now, obviously, we need to discuss what my concern is with this wide receiver. And there's going to be concerns for everybody here. There's going to be concerns for everyone. Just a forewarning. He has a significant injury history, specifically concussions. When you think of players that have a decorated concussion history, I think number one that comes to mind is Tua. And I think we need to remember last year when he suffered his most recent concussion, headlines were circulating all across the NFL, almost encouraging this young man to call it a career because he's really rolling the dice with his health. Now, if you're a Bills fan, yes, there's upside. We can get a great name on this roster. We can get a guy that I think that would mesh very well with Josh Allen and really help him get to that next level. But do we want to risk somebody that is quite literally a concussion away from retiring being added to a team where, let's not be conservative about this, a dark cloud of injury risk has been haunting this team all the way since training camp? I understand that you need to be able to take a risk, but it is something I think that Buffalo needs to account for if, for example, that they do make this move. As far as draft compensation, what gets this done? I feel like that the Saints are in a unique position where they have a brand new head coach, where I think that he doesn't have all of the players on his roster that could, at least in his mind, efficiently run the scheme he's trying to run. So I don't particularly think that this is going to cost very much. If I'm a gambling man, I think that they might be able to get a third-round pick from him, maybe a fifth. That's me. Say, for example, it's anything more than a third, be like, come on. But yeah, as far as Chris Olave, this gets the Dan Mitchell approval. I would be happy with the Chris Olave on this team today. I need to give a giant shout out to Sleeper Picks, folks. Sleeper Picks, hands down the number one player prop platform on the market today. Now, one thing I can tell you is that some of the lines tonight for Thursday Night Football, the Icy Hot Bowl with Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco this evening, are absolute steals. And the best part about it is that they are just giving you a free $20 just for signing up. So if you're feeling lucky this evening, folks, I highly recommend you give Sleeper Picks a download. And once you put down a deposit, if you wish, then they are going to match it up to 100%, all the way up to $100, man. You know what? Right now, Bills fans are all sad. We lost 2 straight. Might as well, weigh down our wallets a little bit, Let's make this money. Shout out to Sleeper. Terms and conditions apply.